by Mr. Michael Kupperman. Michael Kupperman, we heard your resume before. Thanks so much for being here. So, you've done a lot of comic graphic novels. Is that the right way to describe them?
They're trying to be funny, usually. Yeah.
They are funny.
Oh, thank you.
They are funny. Come on, give them a round of applause. Some big cup holders in here. Cup heads.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a cool. Do you have a nickname for your fans?
They're called monsters.
Some real Kupperman monsters here tonight.
Like Lady Gaga's.
So you've done so many of these. Great collection. Tales Designed to Thrizzle is your regular compendium of them. And you've got this new book, All the Answers. If you look, there are pictures inside. How does this book differ from your old ones?
This one's very serious. It's more weepy than all the others. It's a sad, sad book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
It's about my father and trying to find out about the truth about his childhood as he descended into dementia.
Now, your father didn't talk about his childhood very much growing up.
No, it was a subject we knew to stay away from when we were growing up.
Did you have any idea why, or?
Because it was understood that it would cause him pain to mention it. You know, it was known that it was a painful subject. So we were supposed not to really think about it or talk about it at all.
Okay, so what did you discover, or how did you discover what his childhood was like?
Well, he went into a phase, this was before he entered dementia, but where he seemed not to care anymore. So that was when I started working on this, because he seemed actually to like the idea of me doing this book. So I started working on it, and what I realized was, well, how famous he'd been, which I hadn't really realized, and then that it had had a huge traumatic effect on him.
He was famous as a child.
Yeah, he was famous. He went on the show The Quiz Kids when he was 5 years old, and he left it when he was 16.
So what was Quiz Kids?
Quiz Kids was a kind of game show where they had 5 kids. They'd answer questions sent in by listeners, and the 3 winning kids would come back the next week.
Okay.
So it was a really popular show in the 1940s, and then by the 1950s, people were losing interest. But they put it on TV anyway.
So your father was traumatized by a game show?
Yeah, basically.
I'm really sorry about all this.
It's a funny coincidence.
This is a humongous error on our research department.
He was on this game show, and then he came back. I don't want to spoil the story of the book, but then he came back. His the boss who had developed Quiz Kids actually invented the modern game show with $64,000 question, and then became president of CBS. And he came back and was on one of the new modern game shows, which was the last thing he ever did on TV.
Again, one cursory glance at the cover of this book, we could have avoided this awkward situation. A clear microphone. So, what was your discovery when you found out about this? Were you already working on this story, or did you have a graphic novel in mind when you were kind of trying to figure this stuff out, or did it?
Yeah, I had a graphic novel in mind, but I didn't know what shape it would be in. Basically the story is kind of about trying to understand a parent. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing about it. So it was understanding him. I started to realize how it had affected him, and then as I started to affect him, I realized how it had affected me through how he had parented me. So there were a lot of realizations, that came with it.
And how did it feel not doing something that's overtly funny with what you're working on?
It was terrible. It was really hard and painful. Yeah, mm-hmm. I enjoy doing funny stuff much more, but. I felt like I had to do this.
Now, do you feel like, now that you've crossed this threshold, are there other sort of segments of your life that you want to kind of bring to the page?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think this is kind of the new thing for me now.
All right. Well, let's talk about your work prior to this. You had these collections, Tales Designed to Thrizzle.
Yeah.
You had regular characters like Snake and Bacon. Could you describe who Snake and Bacon were?
They're a snake and a piece of bacon. That's basically it.
Let's dive a little further. Is there anything more to it?
They're meant to illustrate the limitations of character. They're the most limited characters you could have.
Now,
they do nothing.
What would, let's say, the snake say? And how about the bacon?
I'm a piece of bacon.
I'll throw some more out. Pagus.
Yeah, Pagus, the god of paganism, of course.
Okay.
Jesus' half-brother.
Yeah, and I think he had a lion's face and dressed kind of like Wonder Woman.
Yeah, or like one of the He-Man characters, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Hercules.
Hercules. Well, he's Hercules. He's the public domain superhero. That
Public domain
everyone can
superhero, that's right.
Yeah.
You actually made a Snake and Bacon Adult Swim pilot back in the day. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, we made a Snake and Bacon pilot back in the day, and they didn't pick it up. It was a lot of fun.
Is it because it's about the limitations of characters?
I think the 2008 economic collapse might have had something to do with it, but that's my
Okay.
theory.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. People didn't want to see something glorifying bacon, which is a delicacy
Right.
in that economic landscape. So, where did you begin doing this? And like, was it something as a kid, or was it something you did
No,
in
I
school?
drifted into it a few years after school.
Okay. What did you
yeah.
go to school for?
I went to school for fine arts, and I hated it, with a passion by the time I was done. So.
Some comedy nerds. They might. You had some classmates, perhaps. Did you?
Did I?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Never mind. Never mind. It was a long-held assumption, and I take it back. But in the Steak and Bacon, you had a lot of comedy.
Yeah, you mean in the pilot, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We had Bill Hader and Peter Serafinowicz, and Kirsten Shaw, actually, who met her husband doing that show. Yeah, that was a great experience. I wish it had continued.
Yeah. So, what do you see as the next? Are you maybe going to try another foray into that world, or
They keep asking. I might. Yeah.
who keeps asking?
Adult Swim.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why are you just withholding from?
Well,
them?
I've been working on this book, and this book's been really immersive for the last few years. So I've just had no time or extra energy to spare, really.
What if you said, I'll do a show, but it has to be about this very serious thing from my personal life?
I don't know if they'd go for that.
Fair enough. Now, you've got a very big fan of yours.
I've read all of your books, one of them twice.
Oh, wow.
Now, let's say I don't believe how big of a fan you are. Do you have any way to prove it?
Yes, I do. I have a unique Kupperman tattoo.
Whoa!
Right here. Everyone forgets until I show them on TV.
Michael, how does that make you feel?
Proud. Very proud.
It is something that will go away when I die.